Greetings, everyone. So tonight I'm going to read an article that is most definitely related to Scientology as well. It's a very long article. I hope that you enjoy me reading this, and I will definitely leave the link in the description box. So the title is Churches Defend Sex Abuse Reporting Loophole by Jason Deeren, Associated Press, Michael Resendez, Associated Press, dated September 28th, 2022. Hold on a minute. It was a frigid Sunday evening at the Catholic Newman Center in Salt Lake City when the priest warned parishioners who had gathered after Mass that their right to private confessions was in jeopardy. A new law would break that sacred bond, the priest said, and directed the parishioners to sign a one-page form letter on their way out. We oppose HB 90, began the letter. Stacked next to pre-addressed envelopes, HB 90 is an improper interference of the government into the practice of religion in Utah. In the following days of February 2020, Utah's Catholic Diocese, which oversees dozens of churches, says it collected some 9,000 signed letters from parishioners and sent them to State Rep Angela Romero, a Democrat who had been working on the bill as part of her campaign against child sexual abuse. HB 90 targeted Utah's clergy penitent privilege, a law similar to those in many states that exempts clergy of all denominations from the requirement to report child abuse if they learn about the crime in a confessional setting. Do you hear that, Scientology? Utah's Catholic leaders had mobilized against HB 90, arguing that it threatened the sacred privacy of confessions. More importantly, it met with disapproval from some members in the powerful Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, known as the Mormon Church, whose followers comprise the vast majority of the state legislature. HB 90 was dead on arrival, so they say. And you guys know all about the 33. If you've been watching me, you should know it by now. It's a code, amongst many. In 33 states, clergy are exempt from any laws requiring professionals such as teachers, physicians, and psychotherapists to report information about alleged child abuse to police or child welfare officials if the church deems the information privileged. This loophole has resulted in an unknown number of predators being allowed to continue abusing children for years despite having confessed the behavior to religious officials. Reminds me of that. I can't think of the name of this show right now, but I had watched this older lady who had been a Jehovah's Witness. It was the same story. In many of these cases, the privilege has been invoked to shield religious groups and pedophiles from civil and criminal liability after the abuse became known to civil authorities. I'm going to get some water. Over the past 2 decades, state lawmakers like Romero have proposed more than 130 bills seeking to create or amend child sex abuse reporting laws, an Associated Press review found. All either targeted the loophole and failed to close it, or amended the mandatory reporting statute without touching the clergy privilege amid intense opposition from religious groups. The AP found that the Roman Catholic Church has used its well-funded lobbying infrastructure and deep influence among lawmakers in some states to protect the privilege, and that influential members of the Mormon Church and Jehovah's Witnesses have also worked in state houses and courts to preserve it in areas where their membership is high, where pedophilia is high. In Maryland, a successful campaign to defeat a proposal that would have closed the clergy penitentiary loophole was led by a Catholic cardinal who would later be defrocked for sexually abusing children and adult seminarians. Well, there we go. Not like we don't know this stuff yet. I think there's a cleansing of the earth going on right now. In other states such as California, Missouri and New Mexico, vociferous public and backroom opposition to bills aimed at closing the loophole from the Catholic and Mormon churches successfully derailed legislative reform efforts. They believe they're on a divine mission, pedophile mission, that justifies keeping the name and the reputation of their institution pristine. Like the Boy Scouts, huh? Said David Finkelhor, director of the Crimes Against Children Research Center at the University of New Hampshire, speaking of several religious groups. So the leadership has a strong disincentive to involve the authorities, police, or child protection people. Same stuff, different day, huh? Make no mistake, all of these organizations are filled with these predators. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. They believe, okay, wait. Okay, I read that. Sorry, guys. Loophole protects churches from survivors and prosecutors. Of course. Last month, an AP investigation found that a Mormon bishop in Arizona, at the direction of church leaders, failed to report a church member who had confessed that he sexually abused his 5-year-old daughter. Sound familiar? Like Miriam Francis? The AP found that Rep. Merrill Nelson, a church lawyer and Utah Republican lawmaker, had advised the bishop not to report the abuse to civil authorities because of Arizona's clergy privilege law. According to documents revealed in a lawsuit, that failure to report allowed the church member, the late Paul Adams, to repeatedly rape his 2 daughters and allegedly abuse one of his 4 sons for many years. I'm going to amp it up here soon. I'm going to get a new computer, microphone, complete with sound effects. Because sound effects are going in my ears right now. Like the purge horn, right? In response to the case, State Senator Victoria Steele, a Democrat from Tucson, on 3 occasions proposed legislation to close the clergy reporting Loophole in Arizona. Steele told the AP that key Mormon lawmakers, pedophiles, probably, including a former Republican state senator and Judiciary Committee chairman, thwarted her efforts before her proposals could be presented to the full legislature. Like I said, vile filth. It's difficult for me to tell this story without talking about the Mormons and their power in the legislature, Steele said. It's money, too. What this boils down to is that the church is being given permission to protect the predators and the children be damned. Yep, just like the Boy Scouts. They are trying with all of their might to make sure this bill does not see the light of day. I bet they wouldn't walk down a lot of people's streets, though, talking like that, would they? Latter-day Saints and Catholics hold a number of influential positions as leaders and committee chairmen in the Arizona legislature, including the Speaker of the House, and have been known to advance or block legislation in line with the church's priorities and values. Yeah, like RAPING, children, huh? They like that. They like that in Scientology, too. Can't get enough of it. In one high-profile example, 2 Republican legislators took a stand in 2019, refusing to vote for a budget until lawmakers passed a measure allowing past victims of child sexual abuse to sue churches or youth groups that turn a blind eye to the abuse. Legislative business ground to a halt for weeks amid fierce opposition from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Roman Catholic Church, and insurers along with their allies in the legislature, which finally approved the measure. Doesn't that tell you what kind of sick world we're in? That the churches want this pentient. You know they're going to give you all kind of gaslighting bullcrap reasons, right? They want the right to RAP children. That's what they want. I'm not even going to get into who's in charge of this sick world. The Adams case is not the only example of the privilege being invoked in cases where a clergy member's failure to report led to prolonged abuse, like Scientology, like Miriam Francis, that goes to the OSA officials. You know, I say that in parentheses because it's a joke. They do nothing. LAPD does nothing. In Montana, for example, a woman who was abused by a member of the Jehovah's Witnesses in the mid-2000s won a $35 million jury verdict against the church for failing to report her abuse. But in 2020, the state Supreme Court reversed the judgment. What? Ruling that church leaders were under no obligation to report, citing the state's clergy pentient privilege. Do you guys see what a sick world we're living in? We're living in a sick world right now. The privilege can also be used to protect religious organizations, no shit, from criminal liability. In 2013, a former Boise, Idaho police officer, oh, here we go again, keep saying this, a former Boise, Idaho police officer turned himself in for abusing children, something he had reported to 15 members of the Mormon Church, none of whom notified authorities. Kind of like the Boy Scouts. But prosecutors declined to file charges against the church because of Idaho's clergy pentient privilege law. It's got to go. It's got to go. It's got to go. It's got to go. If everybody's rights could be violated for body autonomy in the last 3 years, then this can be revoked. The Mormon Church said in a written statement to the AP that a member who confesses child sex abuse has come seeking an opportunity to reconcile with God and to seek forgiveness for their actions. Oh my God. That confession is considered sacred. Oh, I guess, what about R-ing children? Is that sacred too? And in most states is regarded as a protected religious conversation owned by the confessor. Psh, please. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops did not immediately return a request for comment. Sound familiar? Scientology and all the rest of them. About its campaigns against state bills seeking to do away with the clergy pension privilege. But supporters of the clergy privilege say abolishing it will not make children safer. Some go as far to say that the ability of abusers to report privately to clergy encourages them to confess and often leads to stopping the abuse. Please. They never stop. To clergy encourages them to confess and often leads to stopping the abuse. It's considered essential to the exercise of religion to have a priest pension privilege that will allow people to approach their clergy for the purpose of unburdening themselves, their mind, their soul, to seek peace and consolation with God as well as their new fellow beings. Isn't that funny how they talk like that when it has to do with R-ing children, right? Utah State Representative Rep. Nelson told the AP, without that assurance of secrecy, troubled people will not confide in their clergy. What about when the little child is told they have to keep it secret, and if they don't keep it secret, their parents will be killed, or their brother will be killed, or their sister will be killed? What about that? What about that secrecy? Gene Hill, the government liaison for Utah's Catholic Diocese, who helped organize opposition to Romero's bill, pointed to a single research paper to argue that laws that target privileged confessional conversations in the context of child abuse have not increased reporting in those communities. Like I said, the last 3 years, everybody's body autonomy was just completely screwed. Nobody had any kind of rights then, did they? When you take away every opportunity for people to get help, they go underground and the abuse continues, Hill said. All this is gaslighting. All of it. All of it. All these pedos, they don't stop. But the authors of the study Hill cited, published in 2014, have cautioned about reaching such conclusions based on their research. Well, at least somebody's got some sense. Frank Vandervoort, a law professor at the University of Michigan, and his co-author Vincent Paluski, a pediatrics professor, well, I'm going to take this cautiously, at New York University, told the AP that the study was limited partly because churches often wouldn't give them access to data on clergy reporting. Well, that's always their modus operandi. A single article should not be the basis for making policy decisions, said Vandervoort, lead author of the study. It may be entirely the case that there's no connection between the changing of the law and the number of reports. I don't know what to say on this, guys. It's all conjecture. Privilege not constitutionally required. Efforts to rid state laws of the privilege have been successful in only a handful of states, including North Carolina, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, Texas, and West Virginia. Records and interviews with lawmakers in 33 states. There we go to 33 again, you guys. You guys should know what that means. That still have the privilege show that intense opposition from powerful religious organizations is more often too much to overcome. That's why people just need to stop going to these churches. That's my opinion, to each his own, but that's how I feel. Former California State Senator Jerry Hill said a bill he introduced in 2019 to require clergy members to report suspicion of child sex abuse or neglect by coworkers was killed after opposition from the Catholic and Mormon churches, as well as other religious groups. This should tell you guys everything. It should tell you everything. The opposition of the Catholic Church was instrumental in creating a lot of controversy around the bill and a lot of questions related to religious freedom, Hill said. All of a sudden we got freedom, huh? Last 3 years nobody had any freedom because, ooh, it was so scary, Hill said. The Catholic Church made it clear it would sue if the bill passed, Hill said. So just money just makes the laws. Our children all day long. Ours children is just not a big deal. And that's not even it's not even counting the whole Satanism stuff, you know. Michael Cassidy, a professor at Catholic-affiliated Boston College Law School, and a former state prosecutor, said it's not clear how a religious freedom case regarding the clergy privilege would turn out. Some supporters believe the privilege is securely rooted in the First Amendment's guarantee of freedom of religion. Just so funny how the First Amendment only counts in certain areas, right? But Cassidy said there is no firm precedent that says the clergy pension privilege is constitutionally required. The Supreme Court has never held that, Cassidy said. He's proposed a middle path, allow clergy to maintain the secrecy of the confessional, but carve out an exception for dangerous persons, including child sex abusers. I don't know. Me personally, I don't think that would work. I like in theory it sounds good, but, you know, we've seen how much the children are being abused in the Catholic churches. So, it's too much leeway. Often legislative efforts to close the clergy loophole run up against lawmakers who are also church members, as well as intimidation from advocacy groups aligned with various religions. Yeah, Scientology know about all that. It's a 1-2 punch that has killed many bills quietly before they are even introduced, and has led to the privilege loophole being deemed by child welfare advocates as a poison pill included in mandatory reporting bills, the AP's review found. In Utah, after religious officials publicly opposed her bill, wow, seeking to close the loophole, State Rep Romero, a lifelong Catholic, and you guys know what I think of that, I can't say it, received ominous voicemails and emails. Ooh, ominous. Ooh. Here we go. What do I tell you guys over and over? It's always for your safety. For your safety, everybody. Fearing for her staff's safety, she reported some of them to state law enforcement. Okay, wait. Okay, so she was the one standing up. But anyways, I mean, regardless, that sounds legit, but I thought they were going to use that because they love to do that. It's utterly despicable that you think that this is all right, said one anonymous caller claiming to represent a group called Young Americans. Let's just call them Young Pedos. Young Pedos for Liberty. I'm just joking. Not really, but I'm just joking if you guys get my drift. If you care to return my message, if not, I'm going to call you every day until you do. Ooh, sounds like a threat. The blowback also got personal. Devout Catholic members of Romero's own family stopped talking to her. This sounds real wonky to me. They thought I was trying to attack the Catholic Church and get rid of confession. One of our sacraments, Romero said. That's how it was presented to them. That's how propaganda works. In 2003, as the Catholic clergy sex abuse scandal swept the nation, well, how long has that been going on? The whole sex abuse scandal, many years has that been going on? A bill seeking to rid Maryland of the privilege of child abuse cases. Wow. Evoked a strong rebuke from Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, then the powerful Archbishop of the Diocese of Washington, D.C. Let me read that again. I don't think I understand it. In 2003, as the Catholic clergy sex abuse scandal swept the nation, a bill seeking to rid Maryland of the privilege... Oh, I see. To get the penitentiary privilege gone. In child abuse cases, evoked a strong rebuke from Cardinal Theodore McCarrick. Yeah, because they're all RN children. Allegedly. If this bill were to pass, I shall instruct all priests in the Archdiocese of Washington who serve in Maryland to ignore it. McCarrick wrote in a Catholic Standard column on this issue, I will gladly plead civil disobedience and willingly, if not gladly, go to jail. Well, you know what? Bishop, if you go to jail, I really hope that you get put in a cell with somebody who was sexually abused as a child. That's what I hope. Okay, where am I here? And that's such a bunch of baloney. And honestly, people who support these churches, if you support that, you don't care about children. The bill withered under McCarrick's attack and never emerged from committee. Similar legislation proposed in 2004 suffered the same fate, like the children. How they suffer the same fate. Today, the clergy penitentiary privilege in Maryland remains intact, even though McCarrick has been defrocked for sex crimes. There we go. There we go. Win for children. Virginia updated its mandatory reporting law in 2006. While the bill started out with clergy among those listed as reporters with the privilege intact, they would be removed from the final bill. The privilege oddly was left in. The state went on in 2019 to add ministers, priests, rabbis, and other religious officials to the list of mandatory reporters of child abuse, but again protected the clergy penitentiary privilege. State Del Carey Delaney, a Virginia Democrat, who sponsored the bill in 2019 that added clergy to the list of mandated reporters, said that including language to close the privilege would have doomed the bill. We wanted to pass the bill, Delaney said, and we knew that not having that exemption in there would have drawn an enormous amount of resistance from particular faith communities that really would have put the bill in jeopardy. Well, they sure could push that other stuff the last 3 years. I'm just being sarcastic. In heavily Catholic Pennsylvania, 40 bills have included changes in mandatory child sex abuse reporting laws over the past 2 decades. None of them has challenged the clergy penitentiary privilege. That comes as no surprise to child sex abuse survivors and their advocates, who have seen the Catholic Church and its lobbyists, pedos, spend millions in a battle in Pennsylvania over a proposed 2-year legal window for survivors to file lawsuits against their alleged abusers. All that needs to change. I would really hope the consensus is that it's not okay to hurt children. In other states, legislators said they didn't know clergy had a way around reporting abuse. After learning of the loophole from the AP, Vermont State Senator Richard Sears, a Democrat, said he would introduce a bill in the next legislative session to try to close it. I wasn't even aware it existed, Sears said. In 2003, amid the uproar over the Catholic Church's sexual abuse scandals, several states added clergy to their child sex abuse reporting laws. Do you hear that, Scientology? Often with the exception for clergy who learn about child sex abuse during spiritual confessions. Because I guess that matters, huh? That's what happened in New Mexico. With the privilege protected, the bill sailed easily through both houses and was even supported by the Archdiocese of Santa Fe, which was embroiled in its own church sexual abuse scandal. You don't say. Since then, there have been several bills introduced in the New Mexico legislature aimed at clarifying language in the reporting law. Only one would have eliminated the clergy penitent privilege. It died in committee, just how they wanted it. Just how they want your little children's souls to die every time they are them. We have repeatedly asked the legislature to strengthen reporting requirements in schools and religious institutions. State Attorney General Hector Balderas told the AP. He said unreported child abuse is a major problem, resulting in tremendous amounts of trauma. And that is it, folks. I feel this is very important. I didn't even know about it. I was doing just a basic Google search on Scientology and sex abuse, and then I found this. So I will make sure to leave the link to the article in the description box, and we will keep fighting the good fight, no matter how, no matter why, no matter when.